The knife scraped against porcelain as Lila cut her food into neat, unnecessary pieces. She wasn't hungry, and the roast chicken on her plate had gone cold. Across the table, her husband, Daniel, scrolled through his phone, his wine glass untouched. The silence between them wasn't new. It had been growing for years, a vine wrapping tight around a marriage that had long since stopped breathing. "You didn't eat," Daniel said without looking up. "I'm not hungry," she replied, her voice quiet but firm. He gave a short laugh. Not the warm kind she'd fallen in love with years ago, but the sharp, humorless one that now filled their home. "Of course, can't risk losing your figure when you've got nothing else to offer." Her chest tightened. "Is this about—" "It's always about that," he cut in, finally lifting his gaze. His eyes were hard, and she didn't need him to say it. He meant her infertility. Lila set her fork down. "We've talked about this. No, we've gone in circles. I want children. My parents want grandchildren. And you—" He leaned back in his chair, lips curling. "You've given me excuses and doctor's bills." She swallowed, willing herself not to break in front of him. "You think I haven't tried? That I wanted this?" He stood abruptly, chair legs scraping against the hardwood. "Want doesn't matter. Results matter. And since you can't give me that—" He hesitated, as if weighing whether to speak the next words aloud. "What?" she pressed, her voice trembling. "You'll find out soon." "Enough!" With that, Daniel left the dining room, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. She sat there long after he was gone, staring at the untouched plate, the cold roast, and the life she no longer recognized. The next morning, Daniel was already gone when Lila woke. She padded into the kitchen, still in her nightshirt, and froze. A man she had never seen before sat at the table, sipping coffee like he belonged there. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. His hair was dark, neatly cut, but his eyes, grey and unblinking, were fixed on her in a way that made her skin prickle. "Daniel isn't here," she said, pulling her robe tighter. "I'm aware," the man replied, his voice deep and calm. The front door opened, and Daniel walked in, smiling in a way she hadn't seen in months. "Perfect. You're up. Lila, this is Mr. Kalen Black." She glanced between them. "And why is he in our kitchen?" Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Because he's here for you." Her stomach twisted. "What does that mean?" "It means," Kalen spoke before Daniel could, "you're coming with me." Lila laughed, unsure if this was some twisted joke. "I'm not going anywhere." Daniel stepped closer, his voice low. "You don't have a choice. The papers are signed. I've sold our house. And you—" Her breath caught. "You what?" "Don't make this harder than it is," Daniel said. "It's for the best, for both of us." She turned to Kalen, eyes burning. "I'm not property. You can't just—" Kalen rose to his full height, towering over her. "Your husband disagrees, and I've paid him well for his loss." His gaze softened, barely. "Pack a bag, now." Something in his tone left no room for argument. Lila's heart pounded as she turned and walked toward the bedroom, each step heavier than the last. They drove for hours. Kalen's SUV was silent except for the hum of the engine. The city gave way to endless stretches of forest, and Lila's unease deepened. She glanced at him from the corner of her eye. He kept his gaze on the road, hands steady on the wheel. Everything about him was controlled, from his breathing to the way he spoke when he finally broke the silence. "You should know," he said. "You weren't sold to a stranger. I've been watching you for some time." Her grip on her bag tightened. "That's supposed to make me feel better." "I didn't say it would, but you'll understand eventually." "Understand what?" "That you're mine." Her laugh was sharp. "I'm not yours. I'm not anyone's." His lips twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. "We'll see." The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching across the road. He took a turn down a gravel path that wound deeper into the trees until a sprawling lodge came into view, its timber walls lit by the warm glow of lanterns. "Where are we?" she asked. "Home." When he stepped out, two men appeared from the shadows. Both were broad, strong, and watchful, their eyes following her every move. Something about the way they stood, the way they inhaled the air, unsettled her. "This is her?" one of them asked Kaelin. "Yes," Kaelin replied. "In form, the others." The man nodded and vanished into the darkness, moving with an unnatural grace that sent a chill down her spine. Inside, the lodge was warm but tense. Conversation stopped when Lila entered. Men and women, all tall, lean, with sharp, assessing eyes, stared at her like she was an intruder. A woman with auburn hair stepped forward, her smile tight. "This is the human." "Yes," Kaelin said. "Lila." The word human landed heavy in the room, as if it were an insult. Lila shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Kaelin, but he didn't react. Another man leaned against the wall, smirking. "She doesn't look like much." Lila's temper sparked. "And you look like someone who should mind their business." A low ripple of laughter moved through the room, though it wasn't friendly. Kaelin's gaze swept over them, cold and commanding. "She is your Luna. You will treat her as such." The smirk vanished. Heads bowed, but the tension didn't fade. Kaelin led her to a private room at the end of the hall. "Stay here tonight. You'll be safe." She crossed her arms. "Safe from what?" He paused, meeting her eyes. "From those who think I made a mistake bringing you here." Morning light spilled into the room when Lila woke. Kaelin was already there, sitting in a chair by the window, as if he'd been watching over her all night. "You don't have to guard me," she said, pulling the blanket tighter. "I'm not guarding you," he replied. "I'm making sure you don't try to run." Her jaw clenched. "Why me? Out of all the women you could have, why buy someone who doesn't even want to be here?" He stood, his presence filling the space. "Because you're my mate." The words landed heavy between them. She stared at him, unsure if she'd heard right. "Mate? Like girlfriend? Wife? More than that. My other half. The only one meant for me." Her stomach twisted. "You're insane." "Maybe," he said with a faint smile, "but that doesn't make it untrue." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You'll learn our ways. You'll learn me. And one day, you'll stop looking at me like I'm the enemy." She swallowed hard, refusing to give him the satisfaction of an answer. But somewhere deep down, she knew. Whatever he was, wherever this was, her life would never go back to what it had been. The corridors of the lodge were quieter in the early morning, but Lila still felt the weight of eyes on her as she walked toward the kitchen. The scent of coffee and bread hung in the air. She rounded the corner and stopped. Two women stood by the long table, speaking in hushed voices. The auburn-haired woman from the night before, Mara, she recalled Kaelin calling her, leaned close to another wolf. "She's human," Mara murmured. "She doesn't belong here. The council will never approve." The other woman smirked. "I heard she can't even have children." "What kind of Luna is that?" Lila's fingers tightened around the cup she carried. She considered walking away, but the sound of her name stopped her. "Lila won't last a week," Mara finished. "Is that so?" Lila stepped into view, voice sharp enough to cut the room's tension. Both women froze, then straightened. Mara's smile was polite but cold. "We didn't hear you come in." "Clearly," Lila replied, pouring herself coffee. "If you have a problem with me, say it to my face." Mara's gaze flickered toward the doorway behind Lila. Kaelin stood there, his expression unreadable. "Back to work," he said, his tone brooking no argument. The women moved quickly, but Mara's eyes held the promise of more trouble to come. Kaelin stepped to Lila's side. "Don't waste breath on them. They'll test you, but you don't have to rise to it." "Too late," Lila muttered, taking a sip. Later that morning, Kaelin led her outside to the training grounds. The air was crisp, and wolves, both, in human and animal form, moved across the dirt field, sparring or running drills. "You need to understand how we live," he said. "Our laws keep the pack safe. Breaking them means punishment. Sometimes, death." "That's comforting," she said dryly. He gave a faint smile. "Rule 1. Loyalty to the Alpha is absolute. That means me." "And if the Alpha is wrong?" she asked. His eyes narrowed slightly. "The Alpha isn't wrong. Rule 2. Disputes are settled in the ring, not with words. Rule 3. Protect the pack above all else. And Rule 4. He stopped, his gaze locking on hers. "Never betray your mate." The last one made her shift uncomfortably. A loud thud drew her attention. 2 men were locked in combat in the ring, fists and claws flashing. One of them was the smirking man from the night before. Rourke. "Why are they fighting?" she asked. "Dominance," Kaelin said. "It's how we decide rank." She watched as Rourke pinned his opponent, fangs bared, before stepping away in victory. The crowd murmured approval. When Rourke caught sight of her, he smirked again. "Careful, Luna. You might see something you can't unsee." She folded her arms. "Like you actually winning without cheating." Laughter rippled through the crowd, and Rourke's smile faded. Kaelin's hand brushed hers, not quite touching, but close enough to steady her. As the day wore on, Kaelin left her with one of the elders, a silver-haired man named Corin, to explain more about pack structure. "We're not all the same," Corin said, walking her past the kennels and storage sheds. "Some of us were born wolves, some turned. But a human Luna, that's new. And not exactly welcomed," she said. Corin's smile was wry. "Change never is." They passed the sparring ring again, where younger wolves trained under an older female instructor. The sight was brutal, swift strikes, bone-rattling throws, growls that felt more animal than human. "You'll need to know how to defend yourself," Corin said. "I'm not a fighter," she admitted. He met her eyes. "You weren't a prisoner before either. Life changes." Before she could respond, a deep howl cut through the air. Every wolf froze, heads lifting toward the forest. Kaelin appeared moments later, his voice carrying over the yard. "Meeting inside. Now." The wolves obeyed instantly, streaming toward the lodge. Corin gave her a reassuring nod and followed. The meeting room smelled of leather and wood smoke. Lila sat at the edge while Kaelin addressed his pack. "There's movement from the Southern Territory," he said. "Alpha Draven's scouts were spotted near our border." A low rumble of discontent passed through the wolves. Rourke spoke first. "Draven's testing you. He doesn't like that you brought her." His eyes flicked toward Lila. Kaelin's gaze was cold. "Draven doesn't have to like anything I do. He'll learn that the hard way if he pushes further." Mara leaned forward. "With respect, Alpha, Draven has allies in the Council. If they decide a human Luna weakens us, they'll keep their opinions to themselves," Kaelin cut in, his voice sharp. "Unless they want to see what happens when I'm crossed." The tension in the room thickened. Lila stayed silent, but she felt the weight of every glance that landed on her. After dismissing the pack, Kaelin lingered by the door. "Draven will come. Be ready." "For what?" she asked. "For a fight." It didn't take long. 2 days later, a black car pulled up outside the lodge. 3 men stepped out, all wearing dark suits despite the midday heat. Kaelin met them at the door. "Counselors," he said evenly. "We need to speak with you," the tallest replied. His gaze slid to Lila. "And her." In the council chamber, they wasted no time. "A human Luna is unprecedented," one of them began. "Your choice has raised concerns." "Concerns or excuses?" Kaelin asked. "Concerns," the man repeated. "She can't shift. She can't fight as we do. And we've heard she's barren." Lila's stomach twisted. "That's none of your business." "It's the council's business if the pack's future is at stake," another man said. Kaylin's voice was low but dangerous. My mate is my choice. That is not up for debate. The tallest counselor leaned forward. Then be prepared to defend that choice, because others will challenge it. When they left, Kaylin turned to Lila. They'll push harder. You'll need to be ready. She met his gaze, anger flaring. Then teach me. The announcement came at breakfast. Kaylin entered the dining hall with a look that made conversations drop. There will be a trial today, he said, voice carrying across the room. The council insists Lila proves she's not a liability to this pack. Lila looked up from her plate. A trial? What does that even mean? Mara smirked from the far end of the table. It means you'll have to do more than drink coffee and look pretty. Kaylin's tone hardened. Enough. Corin leaned toward Lila. They'll test your courage. It won't be fair. What happens if I fail? She asked quietly. His expression didn't change, but the pause before his answer spoke volumes. Failing isn't an option. The trial was held in the training yard. The entire pack gathered, some in human form, others shifted, yellow eyes gleaming. Rourke stepped into the ring, grinning like a predator. I'll be her opponent. Kaylin's jaw tightened. No claws, no fangs. Of course, Alpha, Rourke said smoothly. The first strike came fast, a sweep of Rourke's leg that sent Lila stumbling. Gasps and laughter echoed from the crowd. She pushed herself up, hands stinging. Come on, Luna, Rourke taunted. Show us why you belong here. She dodged the next strike, barely, but his speed was overwhelming. Sweat beaded her forehead. Then she remembered Corin's quiet advice from training. Use their strength against them. When Rourke lunged, she sidestepped and shoved with all her weight. He stumbled into the dirt. The crowd went silent. Kaylin's voice cut through the air. Enough. She's proven her point. Rourke dusted himself off, shooting her a look that promised this wasn't over. That evening, the council joined them for a formal dinner in the lodge's great hall. The long table was set with roasted meats, fresh bread, and wine. The atmosphere was heavy, polite smiles masking sharp intentions. One councillor, a man named Varys, poured himself wine and glanced at Lila. Tell me, Luna, what exactly do you bring to this pack? Besides novelty. Lila met his gaze. I bring loyalty, courage, and the willingness to stand beside my mate whether you approve or not. Mara, seated 2 chairs down, laughed softly. Courage? I saw fear in your eyes this morning. And I saw you standing on the sidelines, Lila replied coolly. Kaylin's hand rested lightly on the table near hers, a silent show of support. Varys leaned forward. Do you intend to learn to fight? Or will you remain dependent on Kaylin for protection? I intend to be able to protect myself, she said. And anyone else who needs it. Corin, who sat at the far end, gave a faint smile. I'll train her. The rest of the meal passed with careful words and veiled threats. When the council finally left, Kaylin stayed behind with Lila. You held your ground, he said. I'm not here to be a decoration, she replied. His eyes softened. Good, because the days ahead will test us both. Training began the next morning. Corin started her with footwork, making her run drills across the yard. Speed before strength, he said. By midday, her muscles burned. Rourke passed by, watching her with open disdain. Careful, Luna. Wouldn't want to ruin those delicate hands. She ignored him. That afternoon, Kaylin joined the training session. He stepped into the ring with her, moving slower than he could, letting her learn to read his body language. Don't watch my eyes, he said. They lie. Watch my shoulders. They'll tell you when I move. She tried, failing twice, then managed to block a strike. His approving nod sent a strange warmth through her. Later, while walking back to the lodge, they passed Mara speaking with 2 younger wolves. The conversation stopped abruptly. Kaylin's voice was low. If you plot against her, you plot against me. Choose wisely. Mara's expression hardened, but she dipped her head. Yes, Alpha. When they were alone, Lila exhaled. You didn't have to. Yes, I did, he said simply. They sat in Kaelin's study that evening, a fire crackling in the hearth. He poured them both tea, the quiet moment oddly domestic. Why do you keep calling me your mate? She asked. His gaze lingered on her face. Because that's what you are. Every wolf has one, the other half of their soul. It's rare to find yours. Most never do. And I'm yours. Yes. His voice was certain. The bond isn't about bloodlines or abilities. It's about connection. The first moment I saw you, I knew. She frowned. You've been watching me for some time. You said that before. Why? Because I wanted to be sure before I came for you. The weight of his words made her chest tighten. And if I don't feel the same? He sipped his tea. The bond will still be there. It's not something you choose. It's something you either accept or fight until it consumes you. They sat in silence after that, the firelight flickering between them. The night was still when the alarm howl split the air. Lila jolted awake. Seconds later, Kaelin burst into the room, already pulling on his coat. Stay inside, he ordered. What's happening? Scouts spotted Draven's men near the border. I can help. No. His tone was final. You're not ready. He was gone before she could argue. She paced the room, heart pounding, until she caught the faint scent of smoke through the open window. Ignoring his order, she slipped out into the hall. The lodge was half empty, the remaining wolves tense and watchful. She followed the sound of movement into the trees and froze. Two strangers were there, both in human form, but with the same predatory sharpness she'd seen in Kaelin's pack. One held a torch, the other a knife. They spotted her instantly. Well, one sneered. The human Luna. Before she could run, a figure crashed through the undergrowth. Kaelin, shifting mid-leap. His wolf form was massive, fur black as night, eyes burning silver. He tore into the first man, sending the second fleeing into the darkness. When the threat was gone, he shifted back, chest heaving. I told you to stay inside, he growled. You were outnumbered, she shot back. His anger faltered, replaced by something else. And you still came. They stood there, in the dark forest, the tension between them sharper than any blade. Lila stayed at Kaelin's side, while the lodge's medic, an older wolf named Harkin, tended to his injuries. The scratches down his ribs had already begun to close, but the gash on his arm needed stitching. You heal faster than humans, she said quietly, watching Harkin work. Kaelin gave a faint smirk. One of the perks. Harkin snorted. One of the reasons he's reckless, more like. Kaelin ignored the comment, his gaze steady on Lila. You shouldn't have followed me last night. And you shouldn't expect me to sit still when... You're in danger, she replied. For a moment, neither spoke. The firelight in the medic's quarters flickered against the walls, the air thick with the scent of herbs. When Harkin finished, he gathered his supplies. You'll be fine by morning, he said to Kaelin before leaving them alone. Kaelin leaned back in his chair. You did more than disobey an order last night. You put yourself in the middle of an ambush without knowing how to defend yourself. I saw you bleeding, she said simply. That's all that mattered. Something in his expression softened, but he didn't reply. Instead, he reached out, resting a hand over hers. I can't lose you, Lila. Not to Draven. Not to anyone. The tension between them didn't fade. If anything, it grew. 3 nights later, they found themselves alone in the study again, the storm outside rattling the windows. Kaelin stood near the fire, his shirt loose around his shoulders, still healing from the fight. You keep watching me, she said from the sofa. He turned, one corner of his mouth lifting. You keep giving me reasons to. She shook her head, trying to mask the quickening of her pulse. You think you know me, but you don't. I know enough. He crossed the room, stopping in front of her. His hand brushed her cheek, the touch unexpectedly gentle. Lila should have pulled away, but she didn't. The warmth of his skin, the steady weight of his presence anchored her. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because I've waited too long for you to be here," he said quietly. "Because every instinct I have tells me you're mine." For a long moment, the only sound was the crackle of the fire. Then she stood, stepping back just enough to break the contact. "I'm not ready," she whispered. Kaelin nodded once. "Then I'll wait." The peace didn't last. At dawn, Corin woke her with urgent news. "There's a challenge for the Alpha's seat." Her stomach dropped. From who? Rourke. By the time she reached the training yard, the entire pack had gathered. Kaelin stood in the center of the ring, his expression unreadable. Rourke faced him, grinning like a wolf that had already tasted victory. "You've gone soft," Rourke called out. "Bringing a human into this pack proves it. Step down before I put you down." Kaelin's reply was calm, almost cold. "You've wanted my position for years. You won't take it today." The fight began fast. A blur of claws and fists, both men moving with lethal precision. The air was thick with the scent of blood and adrenaline. Lila's nails dug into her palms as Kaelin took a blow to the ribs. But then, in a sudden shift, he turned the momentum, pinning Rourke to the ground with a hand at his throat. "Yield!" Kaelin growled. Rourke's eyes burned with hatred, but he finally spat the word. "Yield!" The crowd erupted in shouts, some in support, others muttering dissent. Kaelin stepped away, leaving Rourke in the dirt. "Challenge me again," he warned, "and I won't let you walk away." The victory didn't bring unity. That evening, the lodge was thick with tension. Some wolves celebrated Kaelin's win, while others whispered in corners. Mara approached Lila near the hearth. "Enjoy the sight of him winning for now. Battles like this don't end in one round." Lila frowned. "If you think undermining him makes the pack stronger, you're wrong." Mara's smile was thin. "Strength is keeping the pack alive, not indulging in human fantasies." Before Lila could reply, Kaelin joined them. Mara's expression shuttered instantly. "Everything all right here?" he asked. "Perfectly fine, Alpha," Mara said smoothly before walking away. Kaelin watched her leave, then turned to Lila. "Don't let her get to you. She's been circling leadership changes for years." Lila's brow furrowed. "Circling you too." He didn't deny it, but his gaze softened. "You're the only one I've claimed. That hasn't changed." That night, Lila lay awake, aware that Rourke's defeat hadn't silenced the pack's unrest. It had only shifted it underground. The next morning brought a heavy rain, drumming against the roof. Kaelin called a meeting in the Great Hall, addressing the pack from the long table. "Rourke's challenge is settled. But the council is already circling, using this as proof I'm distracted by my mate." Varys's voice came from the back. "Are they wrong, Alpha?" A distracted leader makes for a vulnerable pack. Kaelin's tone was sharp. "I'm not distracted. I'm stronger with her here." A murmur rippled through the crowd, some approving, others skeptical. Corin stepped forward. "The Alpha's victory stands. Any who question it can issue their own challenge. Otherwise, this discussion ends now." Silence followed. When the meeting broke, Kaelin found Lila near the door. "I won today, but it won't stop them from coming after you to get to me." Her chin lifted. "Then I'll be ready for them." The determination in her voice made him pause, a faint smile touching his lips. "You're starting to sound like a wolf." Outside, the rain eased, but the air still held the weight of an oncoming storm, both in the skies and within the pack. The council chamber was already tense when Elias entered. The long, rectangular table gleamed under the dim light, flanked by the pack's most influential elders. Their sharp gazes followed him, but he ignored them, taking his seat at the head. Naomi stood just behind him, quiet but steady, her presence a silent rebellion. She wore a plain blue dress, modest yet elegant, her hair tied back, revealing her clear brown eyes that met the council's scrutiny without flinching. "This meeting," Elder Rovan began, his voice deep with restrained hostility, "concerns the ongoing unrest among the southern border packs. The rumors persist that your human mate is the cause of weakness." Elias's jaw tightened. "The unrest is caused by wolves who cannot accept my authority. My mate is not their concern." "She's infertile," Rovan pressed, glancing at Naomi as if she weren't there. "An alpha without heirs invites instability." Naomi's hands curled into fists at her side. She didn't speak, but the slight tremor in her chest betrayed her hurt. Elias leaned forward, his voice a low growl. "You forget your place, Rovan. My choice of mate is mine alone." A younger council member, Lyra, spoke up hesitantly. "We are not blind to her courage, Alpha. But traditions exist for a reason." Naomi stepped forward, her voice steady. "Traditions that destroy families aren't worth preserving." The room fell silent. Even Rovan's smirk faltered. Elias stood. "This meeting is over. Anyone who challenges me will do so directly, not by attacking my mate behind closed doors." As they left, Naomi whispered, "You can't fight all of them forever." "I don't need forever," he replied. "I just need long enough for them to see you're here to stay." The sound of splintering wood echoed from the eastern border. Elias and his guards arrived to find the patrol fence torn down. Fresh, claw marks gouged the posts, the scent of rogue wolves heavy in the air. "Too close," murmured Darius, Elias's beta. Elias examined the damage, his expression grim. "They're testing us, seeing if we're distracted." Naomi, who had insisted on coming despite Elias's protests, crouched beside the broken fence. "These marks, they're uneven. Whoever did this wasn't working alone." Darius frowned. "She's right. Multiple sizes of prints." One of the younger guards shifted uneasily. "Should we call in more patrols?" Elias's eyes darkened. "Double the patrols, and keep Naomi's location hidden from outsiders." Naomi rose, brushing dirt from her hands. "If they're testing you, then they'll strike where they think you're weakest." Elias turned to her sharply. "And you think that's you?" "I know it's me," she said simply. That evening, Naomi sat alone on the veranda, a light shawl wrapped around her shoulders. The night air was cool, carrying the distant howl of wolves. She didn't flinch, she'd grown used to it. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was Lyra, the younger council member who had spoken cautiously at the meeting. "You shouldn't be out here alone," Lyra said, her tone low but urgent. Naomi studied her carefully. "Are you here to warn me or threaten me?" Lyra hesitated. "Both, maybe. There's talk. Rovan is pushing for a challenge to Elias's leadership. If he succeeds, you won't survive it." Naomi's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice calm. "Why tell me?" "Because," Lyra said, stepping closer, "if you're gone, Elias will fall. And I'd rather not see this pack fall into Rovan's hands." Before Naomi could respond, Elias appeared in the doorway. "Lyra, you've said enough." Lyra gave him a curt nod and disappeared into the darkness. Naomi looked at Elias. "You trust her?" "No," he said simply. "But sometimes even an enemy brings useful news." The attack came sooner than anyone expected. Naomi was in the garden, trimming a row of herbs, when the wind shifted and carried a scent she'd never forget. Blood and rage. Naomi, inside. Elias's voice thundered from the porch. Two rogue wolves burst through the tree line, eyes glowing with feral hunger. Naomi froze for a split second before Elias's guards intercepted them. Darius slammed one wolf to the ground, while another guard drove the second back toward the trees. But a third shape darted past them, heading straight for Naomi. Naomi stumbled backward, tripping over the low fence. The wolf leapt and was tackled mid-air by Elias, who shifted in a blur of silver fur. His snarl shook the ground as he pinned the attacker and tore it away from her. When it was over, Elias stood before her, blood on his muzzle. He shifted back, his chest heaving. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, though her hands trembled. They were after me." "Yes," he said, pulling her close. "And now they know I'll kill for you." In the aftermath of the attack, tension in the pack swelled, patrols tripled, and the council's whispers grew bolder. Rovan had not been seen since the night of the ambush, which made Elias even more suspicious. Naomi sat in their private quarters, staring at her reflection in the small mirror. A faint bruise marked her shoulder where she'd fallen. She touched it absently, lost in thought. Elias entered, closing the door behind him. "We need to talk," she turned to him. "About Rovan." "About you," he said. "You were nearly killed because of me." "Because of us," she corrected. He crossed the room, crouching in front of her. "Naomi, I won't let this happen again. But that means you need to trust me, completely. Even when I make decisions you don't like." She held his gaze for a long moment. "And you need to trust me. I'm not just a weakness for them to use. I can be a strength." For the first time in days, Elias's expression softened. "Then we fight together." She nodded. Together. The council convened again only 3 days after the ambush. This time, the air was sharper, filled with the scent of distrust. Elias entered with Darius at his side and Naomi walking just behind them. Rovan was present, seated smugly at the far end, his fingers drumming on the polished table. "Alpha Elias," Elder Varric began, his tone deliberately formal. "The council has reached a decision regarding the safety of this pack." Elias folded, his arms. "And what decision is that?" Rovan leaned forward. "That your mate should be sent away, for her safety, and for ours." Naomi's lips parted, but Elias's hand touched hers under the table, stilling her. "You speak as though banishment will stop our enemies," Elias said coldly. "It will stop them from targeting her," Rovan countered. "Without her, your leadership won't be so compromised." Naomi's voice was calm, but the edge in it was unmistakable. "You assume the rogues come for me because I am weak. Maybe they come because they fear what I could be." Rovan smirked. "Or because they know what you're not." The tension was thick enough to taste. Darius's eyes never left Rovan, a silent warning. Elias rose. "If the council's solution to danger is to discard those we vow to protect, then perhaps we need a new council." Murmurs erupted. Varric slammed his palm on the table. "You're threatening the council." "I'm protecting my mate," Elias replied. "The same way I'd protect every wolf in this pack." As they left, Naomi whispered, "You've just made an enemy out of all of them." "I had no illusions they were my friends," Elias said, his voice low. Elias didn't wait for another attack. The very next morning, he brought Naomi to the training grounds. Darius stood by the rack of wooden practice weapons. "You sure about this?" he asked Elias. "She needs to defend herself," Elias said simply. Naomi arched a brow. "You could just say you want me to stop hiding behind you." A faint smile tugged at his mouth. "That too." Darius handed her a wooden staff. "Start with this. Lighter than a sword, heavier than a dagger. Good for reach." Naomi adjusted her grip and squared her stance. The first few swings were clumsy, but Darius corrected her posture. And soon her strikes were sharper. Elias watched closely. "Better," he said. "But speed matters more than strength." Naomi gave him a sidelong glance. "You planning to spar with me, Alpha?" "If I do, I won't hold back." "Good," she replied. "Neither will I." By midday, sweat beaded on her forehead, and her arms ached. But when Darius tried to call for a break, she shook her head. Again. Elias stepped into the ring, taking a staff of his own. "Let's see what you've learned." When she blocked his first strike, his eyes glinted with approval. By the time he disarmed her, She was grinning despite the bruises forming on her forearms. "You'll never be unprepared again," he said quietly. 2 nights later, the eastern border alarms rang. Elias, Darius, and 3 guards raced through the forest, Naomi following at a distance despite Elias's earlier orders. They found nothing at first. No wolves, no tracks. "False alarm?" one guard asked. Naomi stepped forward, scanning the ground. "No, look at the grass. It's been flattened here and here." They were watching. Elias crouched, his eyes narrowing. "Too close to the patrol route." "They're not testing anymore," Darius muttered. "They're planning." Naomi's stomach tightened. "Then they'll come soon." On the way back, Elias pulled her aside. "You shouldn't have followed us." "If I hadn't, you might have missed the signs," she countered. His gaze softened, but his voice remained firm. "You're right, but you still have to be careful. If I lose you, Naomi—" "You won't," she interrupted. "Not while I'm still breathing." It came in broad daylight. Rovan stood in the center of the training grounds, flanked by his supporters. "Alpha Elias," he called, his voice carrying. "I challenge you for the leadership of this pack." The murmurs of gathered wolves rose like a tide. Naomi stood among them, her heart pounding. Elias stepped forward. "You're certain you want this, Rovan?" "I'm certain you've led us to the brink of ruin." Rovan spat. "The council agrees. Defeat me, and I'll submit. Lose, and you and your human mate leave this pack." Naomi's fists clenched, but Elias's calm was unshaken. "Then let's end this." The fight was brutal. Rovan was strong, his strikes fueled by bitterness, but Elias's skill outmatched him. Within minutes, Rovan was on the ground, blood in his mouth. Elias stood over him. "Yield." Rovan hesitated, then growled. "I yield." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elias turned to the onlookers. "Anyone else?" No one stepped forward. Naomi met his eyes from across the ring, relief flooding through her. Rovan disappeared that night. By dawn, Elias received word. 2 border guards were dead, and tracks led east into rogue territory. Darius cursed under his breath. He's not done. Naomi entered the war room where Elias and his lieutenants were gathered. "You think he's joined them?" Elias nodded grimly. "And he knows our defenses." "Then we have to strike first," Darius said. "No," Elias replied. "We fortify. He'll come to us." Naomi looked between them. "And if he comes for me again?" Elias reached for her hand. "Then we'll make sure he never walks away." The war room fell silent. Outside, the wind carried the distant howl of wolves, a promise of what was coming. 3 days passed without incident, but everyone felt the change in the air. Patrols doubled, and the pack's warriors were rarely seen without weapons at their side. Naomi stood at the border with Darius, scanning the tree line. The late afternoon light painted the forest in molten gold, but there was no warmth in it. "You feel it too, don't you?" Darius asked. Naomi kept her eyes forward. "Like the air before a thunderstorm." "Rovan won't wait much longer. He's never been patient." Naomi glanced at him. "You knew him well before this?" Darius's jaw tightened. "We fought together in 3 border wars. He used to be different, loyal. Then ambition got its claws in him." She thought of Rovan's sneer during the council meeting, the hatred in his eyes. And now he'd burn this pack to the ground if it meant taking Elias's seat. They heard the soft crack of a branch to their left. Both turned sharply. A deer bolted through the undergrowth, vanishing into the shadows. Naomi exhaled, but Darius didn't relax. "They're close," he said. "Too close." That night, Elias called a meeting in the war room. Naomi, Darius, and the lieutenants gathered around the map table. "Patrols spotted 3 rogues on the southern ridge," Elias said. "They didn't attack, they just watched." "They're scouting," Naomi murmured. Darius frowned. or sending a message. As if on cue, one of the guards entered, carrying a rolled scrap of leather. "Found this pinned to a tree near the ridge." Elias took it, unrolling it on the table. Scrawled in rough ink were the words, "Trade the girl and the pack lives, Naomi's." Breath caught. He's not even pretending anymore. Elias's hand closed into a fist. "Rovan thinks I'll give you up to save myself." Darius's eyes darkened. Then he's forgotten who he's dealing with. Naomi stepped closer to the table. "So, what's the plan?" Elias looked around at each of them. "We prepare for war, and we make sure when they come, they regret stepping foot on our land." The next day, Elias outlined the plan. A feigned weakness at the northern border to draw the rogues in, while the bulk of the warriors lay in wait along the eastern flank. Naomi insisted on being part of it. "If he's coming for me, I can use that." Elias shook his head. "No, I'm not asking," she said firmly. "You train me for this." Darius looked between them. "She's right, Elias. If she's bait, we control where he strikes." Reluctantly, Elias agreed, but only with 2 guards shadowing her at all times. By nightfall, the trap was set. Naomi stood at the northern clearing, a torch burning beside her, the flicker casting long shadows. Her guards, Marcus and Leah, stayed close. The forest was silent. Too silent. Then a howl split the night. Shapes emerged from the darkness. 5. Rogues at first, then more. Rovan stepped into the torchlight, his grin sharp. "Naomi," he called, "how generous of you to wait for me." The ambush erupted in seconds. Before the rogues could close in, Elias's warriors charged from the east, cutting through the first wave. Naomi blocked a strike from a rogue with her staff, swinging hard into his ribs before Marcus took him down. Rovan moved like a shadow through the chaos, his eyes locked on her. "You've made Elias weak," he snarled as they circled. "You made yourself your own enemy," she shot back. He lunged, but she sidestepped, jabbing her staff into his side. He grabbed it, yanking her forward, but she drove her knee into his stomach and broke free. Elias's roar cut through the battle. He was fighting his way toward them, every strike lethal. Darius intercepted 2 rogues trying to flank Naomi, his blade flashing. "Stay with me," he barked, but Rovan didn't retreat. He leapt again, knocking Naomi to the ground. Her staff rolled out of reach. His hand closed around her throat. "Say goodbye," he hissed. A silver blur slammed into him. Elias, shifting, mid-leap. His massive wolf form pinned Rovan, teeth sinking deep into his shoulder. Rovan screamed, but the sound was drowned by the howls of retreating rogues. The survivors fled into the trees, but Rovan didn't make it far. Elias shifted back, blood streaking his face and chest, dragging Rovan by the collar into the clearing. The pack formed a circle around them. Rovan's defiance flickered, then broke. "You could have ruled beside me," Rovan spat. "I'd rather die than betray my pack," Elias replied. Naomi stepped forward, her voice steady. "And I'd rather fight every day than be the reason it falls." Rovan's gaze swept over them both, his expression twisting. "Then you'll burn together." Elias's fist ended the conversation. Rovan collapsed, unconscious. Darius signaled, 2 warriors to bind him. By dawn, Rovan was exiled beyond the far border, his bond to the pack severed. Without him, the rogue threat scattered. Naomi stood beside Elias as the sun rose over their land. "It's over," she said softly. "For now," he replied. Then he looked at her, and a rare, small smile broke through. "But we're stronger for it." Darius joined them, his expression tired but satisfied. "You 2 really know how to ruin a good night's sleep," Naomi laughed, a sound rare since this all began, and for the first time in weeks, the pack could breathe. The battlefield was cleaned by morning. Broken weapons were collected, the wounded tended, and the dead honored with a pyre. Smoke curled into the pale sky, the scent of ash and blood lingering in the cold air. Naomi stood beside Leah as they wrapped a warrior's body in cloth. Leah's hands shook. "He was my cousin," Leah said quietly. Naomi tightened the knot and looked at her. "He fought to protect all of us. That matters." Leah gave a small, pained nod. Across the clearing, Darius spoke with Elias. "The border patrols are holding," Darius reported. "But there's a problem. Without Rovan, the rogues are scattered, but some might try to regroup. We need a long-term plan." Elias's gaze swept over the camp. "We'll strengthen the borders and renew our alliances. I don't want another war in a year's time." Naomi approached them. "And what about the healers? They've been working without rest since last night." Elias's eyes softened. "We'll rotate them. Everyone needs to recover, body and mind." Darius glanced between the two of them. "Recovery's easy to promise, harder to live by." Naomi folded her arms. "Then we make sure it's not just words." 2 days later, a messenger from the neighboring Silverpine pack arrived. The envoy, a tall woman with a scar across her cheek, was brought into the council chamber. "I'm Leora," she said. "Our Alpha sent me to offer cooperation." Elias leaned back in his chair. "Silverpine hasn't offered cooperation in years. Why now?" Leora met his gaze evenly. "Because if Rovan had succeeded here, we would have been next." Naomi studied her. "So you're not here out of goodwill?" Leora gave a faint smirk. "Goodwill is expensive. Mutual benefit is cheaper." Darius stepped forward. "If we agree, what do you offer?" "Shared patrols along our shared border, information on rogue movements, and," she paused, "trade access to the southern pass." Elias's brows lifted. "That's a generous offer." Leora's smirk widened. "It's survival, not generosity." Naomi glanced at Elias. "It could work, but only if they prove. They won't vanish the moment trouble comes." Elias nodded slowly. "Then it will be tested. 1 season of cooperation, and we'll see where we stand." Leora extended her hand. 1 season? Agreed. Night brought quiet, but Naomi couldn't sleep. She found herself wandering to the training grounds, where Darius was running drills alone under torchlight. "You don't stop," she said. He looked up, sweat glistening on his brow. "Neither do you." Naomi leaned against the fence. "You've been avoiding the celebrations." Darius's strikes slowed. "I'm not in the mood to drink away the dead." She didn't argue. "You lost people too. More than I care to count." His voice was low. "And I still can't decide if I could have saved them." "You could have died trying." Finally stopped, gripping his blade. "Maybe that would have been easier." Naomi stepped into the ring. "Or maybe living with the weight is the harder choice, and the better one." Darius studied her for a moment, then gave a small, weary smile. "You're getting good at this whole Alpha's voice of reason thing." "I'm not his voice of reason," she said. "I'm mine." And for the first time, he laughed. By the 3rd week, the pack was showing signs of real recovery. The wounded were healing, patrols were coordinated with Silverpine, and the air was lighter, though the scars remained. Elias called Naomi to the ridge overlooking the valley. Silverpine's scouts confirmed most rogues moved east. The threats thinned. "That's good," she said. "So what's bothering you?" He hesitated. "I've been thinking about stepping down." Naomi's eyes widened. "What?" "This war. It showed me how much the pack needs new blood. New vision." "You think you're done?" she asked, her voice sharper than intended. "I think it might be time to pass the mantle when the pack is truly stable." Naomi shook her head. "You can't make decisions like this while the dust's still settling." Elias met her gaze. "And you can't ignore that you're already part of their future." She frowned. "I didn't ask to lead." "Neither did I," he said, his tone quiet. "But here we are." The final council meeting of the season was held in the Great Hall, firelight dancing on the stone walls. Leora from Silverpine was present, along with the pack's elders, Darius, Leah, and several warriors. Elias stood at the head of the table. This season tested us more than any before, but we endured. And now we move forward. The elders voiced their approval. Leah, looking stronger, nodded at Naomi from across the table. Darius sat straighter. The haunted look in his eyes faded, but not gone. Leora rose. Silverpine renews our agreement. For now, our borders are shared, our enemies common. After the meeting, Naomi stepped outside into the crisp air. Elias joined her. "So," she said, "still thinking of stepping down?" He gave a small smile. "I'll wait, for now." "Good," she replied. "I'm not ready to lose my sparring partner." From the ridge, they watched the first light of dawn spill over the valley. The forest was quiet, the air clean. For the first time in months, it didn't feel like the calm before a storm. It felt like the beginning of something worth protecting. The great hall was tense. The council had gathered, but this meeting was not about trade routes or patrol schedules. It was about the oath. Elias stood at the head of the table. "The rogues are scattered, but they're not gone. The time has come for the packs to swear a blood oath against any who threaten our lands again." Leora from Silverpine arched an eyebrow. "You want binding magic between our packs?" "Yes," Elias replied. "An oath bound by the old rites. No one can break it without losing their power." Murmurs rippled through the elders. Leah, seated near Naomi, leaned in and whispered, "If they agree, it means no turning back. Ever." Naomi met her gaze. "Then we make sure it's worth the risk." Darius spoke up from the other side of the table. "An oath means trust, and trust is earned. Silverpine's only just begun to mend bridges with us." Leora didn't flinch. "Which is why we take the oath. We both have enemies, and frankly, I'd rather bleed beside you than against you." Elias extended a ceremonial dagger across the table. "Then let's seal it." They cut their palms, blood mingling on the ancient stone, the runes burning faint gold. Naomi felt the magic shiver through the air. It was done. The healer's tent was quieter than it had been in weeks. Naomi found Leah at a table, carefully packing away herbs. "You're clearing out?" Naomi asked. Leah gave a small smile. "I'm going home. My family needs me. I've been thinking about it since the battle." Naomi hesitated. "You've been the backbone of the healing corps. We'll feel your absence." Leah tied the satchel shut. "And you'll manage without me. You've got 3 apprentices now. They'll grow into the role." Naomi stepped closer. "I'm going to miss you." Leah's voice softened. "And I'll miss you. But I think I want a quiet life. I've seen enough blood for 10 lifetimes." Naomi understood. "Then, go find your quiet." Leah hugged her tightly. "Take care of them, Naomi. All of them." When she left that afternoon, the whole pack gathered to see her off. Even Darius, who wasn't one for farewells, stood in the crowd and gave her a small nod. Darius found Elias in the training grounds at dawn. "I've been thinking," Darius began. "The pack's stronger now, but it needs more than one alpha and a few council members. It needs a real war leader." Elias set down his training staff. "You're volunteering, I'm asking," Darius corrected. "Officially, not just as the guy you send when there's trouble." Naomi, who had been sparring nearby, glanced between them. "I'd support it." Elias folded his arms. "It's not a light role. You'll be responsible for every fighter's life, and for choosing when not to fight." "I know," Darius said. "But if we've learned anything from Roven's attack, it's that waiting until danger's at our door isn't enough. I want to train every wolf here to be ready." Elias's eyes narrowed, then softened. "You have my support, and the council's, I'm sure." Naomi smirked. "Looks like you just got promoted." Darius grinned faintly. "Guess I'll have to start acting respectable now." Winter crept in with sharp winds and early snow. The pack gathered in this great hall for the solstice feast. Fires roared in the hearths, the tables heavy with food, laughter warming the stone walls. Partway through the evening, Elias rose, his voice carrying over the noise. "This may be my last solstice as your alpha." A hush fell instantly. Naomi's eyes narrowed. "You're serious?" Elias nodded. "I've thought long and hard. We've rebuilt, secured alliances, and strengthened our warriors. It's time for someone new to carry us forward." An elder spoke from the far table. "And who would that be?" Elias's gaze shifted to Naomi. Her breath caught. "No, you've been leading in all but name," Elias interrupted gently. "You see the people, not just the title, and they see you." Darius smirked. "You'd make a better alpha than half the ones I've met." Leora raised her cup. "If you take it, Silverpine will stand by you." Naomi's heart pounded. She didn't answer right away, but as the pack began to cheer, she knew the decision had already begun to form in her chest. The coronation was held at sunrise, the snow glinting under the pale light. Naomi stood before the pack, Elias beside her, the ceremonial pendant in his hands. He placed it around her neck. "From this day, you lead us. May your voice carry truth, and your strength carry us through the darkest nights." Naomi looked out at the faces before her. Darius, standing like a sentinel at her side. Leora, smirking with approval. The elders, bowing their heads, even the youngest pups watching wide-eyed. "I didn't seek this," she said. "But I'll honor it. I'll protect you, fight for you, and see that no one here stands alone again." The pack roared their approval. Later, when the crowd had dispersed, Darius joined her at the ridge. "So, Alpha, what's first?" Naomi smiled faintly. "First, we make sure the peace we've fought for actually lasts." And as the sun climbed, higher, the snow-bright valley stretched before them, untouched, unbroken, and full of the promise of a future they had bled to claim.